The heavy wooden spatula cut through the morning air with a sharp, rhythmic whistle. Akari Sweetshade stood in the center of the courtyard, her feet planted wide against the packed dirt. She pivoted, her core tightening as she swung the wood in a practiced, lethal arc. Sweat tracked lines through the dust on her forehead, but she did not blink. Beyond the towering, rusted iron gates of the Pie Kingdom, the mist-shrouded peaks of Tricky Mountain loomed like jagged teeth against the horizon. She halted mid-swing, the spatula held steady in front of her. The silence of the courtyard felt heavy, broken only by the distant, low rumble of thunder from the high peaks. She stared at the summit, her breath hitching in her chest. This was not just a recipe, it was a legacy. She gripped the handle tighter, her knuckles turning white. "I will master the secret legendary recipe," she murmured, her voice steady against the wind. "I will rise as the ultimate pie ninja sword master." She tucked the spatula into her belt and turned toward the mountain path. The gates creaked open, and she stepped forward, leaving the safety of the kingdom behind. The trail narrowed until the granite walls pressed in on either side. Akari led the way, followed closely by Cherry Vale, Liberty Heart, and Syra, Ben, and Donna. The air here was colder, biting at their skin and smelling of dry, scorched earth. They rounded a sharp bend where the path plunged into deep shadow. Movement flickered along the rock face. Akari slowed, her hand dropping to the spatula at her side. The shadows were not just an absence of light. They were shifting, detaching themselves from the stone. Jagged, clawed forms emerged from the cracks in the canyon wall. Their bodies were textured like hardened, burnt crust, dry and brittle. They moved with a scraping, rhythmic sound that grated against the silence of the pass. More poured from the fissures above, blocking the narrow exit ahead. The group backed against the cold, unyielding rock. The creatures circled, their clawed limbs clicking against the stone floor. They were closing the distance, trapping the six of them in a tight, jagged ring. Every escape route was blocked by the scraping, shifting mass of monsters. Akari felt the heat radiating from their crust-like bodies. There was nowhere left to run. The monsters lunged, their jagged claws scraping sparks against the canyon floor. Akari swung her spatula, but the creatures were too numerous, swarming from every crevice. The group scrambled backward, boots slipping on loose shale. Cherry Vale dove behind a massive, moss-slicked boulder, her eyes darting across the chaotic terrain. She needed a way out. Her gaze landed on a narrow fissure in the cliff face. A symbol glowed there, pulsating with a soft, rhythmic light that defied the surrounding gloom. She pointed, her voice cutting through the screeching of the crust creatures. Blueberry. The word echoed off the granite walls, sharp and clear. The effect was instantaneous. The pulsating light flared into a brilliant white flash. The monsters froze, their clawed limbs shuddering. Then, they simply lost form. Their hardened bodies crumbled, collapsing into harmless, dusty piles of flour that coated the trail. The air, thick with the scent of burnt crust moments ago, cleared. The group stood in the sudden, ringing silence, watching the white powder settle on the rocks. The path was open again. Cherry Vale stepped out from behind the boulder, wiping flour from her sleeves. They had survived the first trial, but the climb to the summit had only just begun. The path led upward until it terminated in a wide, hollowed-out chamber carved directly into the heart of the mountain. This was the kitchen. Massive vats of thick, yellow butter sat ready, alongside mountains of flour that filled the air with a fine, white haze. Akari took her place at the primary vat, her hands diving into the cold, dense mass. Ben and the others fell into a brutal, rhythmic cycle. They hauled heavy sacks of flour across the rough stone floor, the weight digging into their shoulders. Then came the churning. They plunged their arms into the vats, fighting against the thick, sluggish resistance of the butter. Minutes turned into hours. The air grew hot, thick with the smell of fat and grain. Sweat dripped from their brows, stinging their eyes as they labored. Their muscles burned, screaming for rest, but they kept moving. Every motion was a repetition of the last fold. Press, turn, repeat. Ben gripped the edges of the heavy wooden basin, his knuckles white, forcing the mixture to combine. Slowly, the chaotic ingredients began to yield. They smoothed the mass onto a clean slab of stone, working the surface with palms and forearms until the texture became uniform. They stretched it thin. Then, they stopped. A single, flawless sheet of golden dough lay before them, glowing in the dim light of the cavern. The second trial was complete. They ascended the final jagged stairs to reach a plateau suspended over the abyss. Before them lay a massive, floating stone board. It was not anchored to the mountain, but balanced on a single, crystalline pivot. The surface was already cluttered with rare ingredients, heavy sacks of spices, and glass vials of liquid. Akari stepped onto the slab first, her boots clicking against the cold rock. The others followed. The moment the fifth person touched the stone, the entire platform groaned. It tilted violently to the left. The spices slid toward the edge, spilling in dark, fragrant trails. Akari caught a vial of extract just before it tumbled into the clouds below. The air grew thin, and the temperature plummeted. Beneath their feet, the platform began to shudder with a low, grinding sound. It was not a stable surface. It was a trap. Every movement they made rippled through the stone, causing the entire board to sway like a ship in a gale. They stood frozen, backs pressed together, trying to center their weight. The ground shifted again, a sharp, rhythmic jerk that sent the ingredients skittering toward the precipice. Donna gripped the edge, her gaze fixed on the glowing, cryptic runes carved into the floor. The board tilted further, the angle becoming steep enough that standing upright was a battle against gravity itself. Donna reached out, her fingers tracing the glowing lines of the central rune. The stone groaned under the pressure of her touch. She hesitated, misreading the jagged symbol for a stabilization sigil, and pressed down hard. The feedback was instantaneous. A high-pitched, harmonic vibration shattered the air, and the platform lurched with the force of a tectonic shift. It flipped at an impossible angle. The rare ingredients cascaded off the edge like a waterfall of glass and powder. Donna lost her footing instantly. Her heels skidded on the polished stone as the surface tilted toward the vertical. She clawed at the air, her body sliding toward the jagged precipice. Akari lunged, fingers reaching out, but the stone board bucked again, throwing the group in opposite directions. Donna hit the lip of the platform, her grip failing as the rock crumbled beneath her weight. She vanished into the thick, swirling mist of the mountainside. Her scream was cut short by the howling wind. Above, the others scrambled to the center of the slab, pressed flat against the stone, eyes wide and fixed on the empty space where she had just been. Silence returned, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the distant sound of sliding shale echoing from the dark depths far below. The summit was a flat, barren slab of granite, but it was not empty. As the four survivors pulled themselves onto the final ledge, the ground began to ripple. Thick, pale mounds of dough surged upward, coalescing into a towering, hulking form. The dough-golem stood 10 feet tall, its mass shifting like cooling wax. It roared a sound of rushing air and tearing bread. A massive fist slammed into the stone where Akari had stood a second before, sending cracked spider webbing across the summit. Liberty and Ansira sprinted to the left, their weapons flashing as they struck at the creature's knees. Their blades sank into the sticky, dense hide, but the material merely stretched and closed back over the steel. The golem swung heavily into a wide, punishing arc. Ansira ducked, the air whistling over her head as the blow shattered a nearby boulder. Cherryvale scrambled along the perimeter, searching for a seam in the creature's shifting body. The golem roared again, its limbs thrashing, turning the summit into a gauntlet of slamming dough. Every impact shook the mountain, forcing the group to dance between the strikes. They were trapped at the edge of the world, with the beast blocking the only path to the ancient oven. The golem slammed its fists down, the rhythmic pounding that turned the summit into a cage. Liberty and Ansira dived toward the beast, their movements desperate and precise. They hacked at the creature's massive legs, drawing the golem's attention away from the center. The monster groaned, twisting its torso to swipe at them. For a heartbeat, the dense, doughy mass around its chest split open, A pulsating, crystalline core flickered deep within the creature, exposed to the cold mountain air. Akari saw the opening. She did not hesitate. She gripped her wooden spatula, her knuckles white, and felt a surge of heat radiate from the wood into her palms. The spatula erupted in a brilliant, searing light. She launched herself off a jagged rock, feet finding purchase on the slick, yeasty surface of the golem. She drove forward, the glowing edge of her weapon humming with kinetic force. She struck with the weight of her entire body behind the blow. The spatula connected with the core, and a sound like shattering glass echoed across the peaks. The golem stiffened, its massive form beginning to crumble and dissolve into scattered dust. The path to the ancient oven lay open, clear of the beast at last. Akari stood before the ancient oven. It was carved directly into the granite, a dark, hollow mouth waiting for the offering. She pulled the rare ingredients from her pack, their weight pressing against her palms. She slid the dough sheet inside, then carefully arranged the fillings, feeling the heat of the mountain rising through the stone floor. The oven remained cold. She adjusted the vents, tapping the stone casing with her spatula until a low hum vibrated through her boots. Suddenly, the interior flared with a soft amber light. The smell began to fill the thin mountain air, a rich, buttery aroma that cut through the sharp scent of ozone and dust. Minutes crawled by. The air around the peak grew heavy with the smell of perfection. Akari watched the light inside the oven deepen from amber to a brilliant, toasted gold. She reached in, the heat radiating against her skin, and carefully pulled out the tray. The crust was flawless, shimmering with a light that seemed to come from within. She stood there, the weight of the dish steady in her hands, while the others gathered around. The trials were over. The legendary recipe was no longer a myth, but a reality resting in the center of the summit. The heavy iron gates of the palace groaned open, welcoming the travelers back from the jagged silence of the peaks. Akari moved toward the throne room. The tray held level, the steam still rising in thin, fragrant ribbons. The court fell silent as she crossed the polished marble floor. Queen Pai waited on the dais, her gaze fixed on the dish. Akari stepped forward and set the tray down on the low table before the throne. She stepped back, her duty finished. The queen reached out. Her fingers hovered over the golden crust, then brushed the edge. She broke off a small piece. Her hands shook, a tremor that traveled from her wrists to the very air around her. She tasted it. The silence in the room deepened as the flavor took hold. The queen looked up, her eyes scanning the marks of the mountain on Akari's face and hands. She did not speak, but the way she gripped the arms of her throne, knuckles white, told the truth of the moment. The trials had been brutal, the climb nearly impossible, but the result was undeniable. The legendary recipe was mastered. The heir had returned, not just as a successor, but as a survivor